Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of our data analysis class. And we're going to continue from where we stopped yesterday. So Mr. Abraman Ghazal will continue with us again today. Mr. Abraman Ghazal, you can have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophia. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah, good evening. Generally, just good day. First our day has been good. Yeah, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Before we start the class, Sophia would like to answer the question in the chat regarding yesterday's video.
All right, good day. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Ramon Adisa, and I'm head of training for this training program. Okay, regarding yesterday's video, apologies that we've not been able to share with you guys. Sometimes it takes a whole lot of time to upload those videos and before we could share them, but before the next training during the week, by the grace of God, we're going to ensure we have today's video shared and that of yesterday, and the link will be shared with you guys. So apologies once again that we have not been able to do that by now. But before the next training, by the grace of God, we are going to ensure that is ready and we get it across to you guys. So once again, thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berman, for the update. Yeah. So to resume the class, sorry about that. Yeah, so to resume the class, yesterday we talked about VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP. And generally we had to deal with searching for a data needed under one category from another source. So we did that either just searching for a single data or in terms of commission. Just as this example, we had to extract the percentage and then compute the commission to be received by the respectful salespersons. And to continue from that, we'll be talking about conditional formatting today. Yeah, so on our general menu bar, that's Excel's menu bar, we have under the Home button, we can see a button called conditional formatting. And let me do something, please. I would like to duplicate this sheet. So take it. So for sales, create a copy. Okay. Yes, so this is something similar to the data we've been working yesterday. It's literally the same data. So we have set of students. We have the this is the result from 3 subjects. So we have maths, we have physics, we have chemistry. So under this is like the general formatting type, as we talked about the first day. So we can format this as a table just to create that as a table. That is, once we do this, we just make it a table by clicking the format table, and we can then select whichever style we want. So yeah, our table. So if we can see this section, I hope my screen is not too small. So by creating this format as table, we want to make this range a table. And then Excel is identifying that range here and using an absolute referencing. If we have headers, like in our case, we have the name, the maths, physics as headers, we have to check this button, which is already checked. And if not, we can uncheck it, but in our case, it is. So, and then it becomes a table. And because that was the style we chose, we could change it to this. So that's for the table formatting, but I like to leave it just as plain as it was initially. So coming to conditional formatting, which is this, we generally have different distance range depending on what we are dealing with. So these are more or less like built-in function in Excel, whereby you can say you want to highlight, as it says, highlight some set of cells based on greater than, lesser than, between a range, equal to a range, text containing something if it's a text file, or if you're dealing with date, or you want to just highlight any ones that are duplicate values. So there are more rules in which you can explore. And at the end of the day, it's going to be subjective to the task you're carrying out. So in this case, we'll not be exploring this. And then we can see further styles, which are just simple ones. So this is like the normal cell. We can make a cell to be identified bad. And why? Probably because it didn't meet, for our example where we are dealing with score, bad could be someone in a Nigerian context. So probably say grades are, we have A, B, C, D, E, and F. So grade, grade, score range. So we have our score range, if I recall correctly, we have, this is 70 to 100. Although it might differ from score to score, feel free to disagree, but let's just use this for example. So 60 to 69. 50 to 59, I think. It's 45 to 49. I think 40 to 44. And anything lesser than 40. So, which automatically refers to a range of 0 to 39. So this is the general grade in Nigeria, which means we can have a huge data set like this and then identify bad to be anything that is F, if that should be our preference, or we can then identify students that had A based on criteria. So we can use this setup just for normal ones, or we can just simply use to show that, yeah, a calculation was done here, or I'm just telling my colleague, check this cell, we probably did something wrong. I could use this to make it an explanatory, that is if I'm trying to make some text that, yeah, this is the grading system in Nigeria, so I could just or just put it by side. Yes. So right now it's more or less like a text file, but I could then make it an explanatory, which is this. And the moment it identifies it as an explanatory text, and then it's not destined, Excel just sees this and marks it as that. And whoever sees it later can then interpret based on that, or just a neutral. So at the end of the day, it's very subjective, and we could be dealing with something we would like to show a variation in color. That is to show that when it is high, it is at what range, and when it is low, it is at this range, and then we can use the same cell styles. So there's a wide range of styles. You can match two styles together, but these are just to show the natural inbuilt function in Excel. But to explore, for example, I like to use these. So we have, we are not using the icon It doesn't work for our situation. The color scale, we are not dealing with with scaling data. Okay, for data bar, when we get to more visualization. And then we can search for like here, if we have, this is just 15 data sets, which is very small. In our case, we could have searched for, based on the criteria, the highest, the top 10 items, the top 10%, the bottom 10, or the above average ones and the below average ones. So they're just more rules as well. But for the grading system, like identified earlier, so we have maths, physics, and chemistry grade, and we have everything down here. We can see the different grade. If we would like to highlight the ones that were below 40, which is failed, using this grading system, we can highlight it. And what's the importance of this formatting? It makes it faster for us to visualize and interpret what we are saying. So in this case, I'm going to use the highlight cell rule. Go to less than, because we are saying less than 40. So less than 40, it automatically shows a default rule, but you can always edit it. So here it's showing 53, but in our case, we like to use anything lesser than 40. We can change the color, of course, and then in our case, we can customize the format, but the light red is sufficient for what we need, because then it shows like here below average, and we simply click OK. So by doing that, we already have a view on our chart. Like we don't need to necessarily start looking at every student. From just this formatting style, we can see like Hans failed the exam completely. It was red all through for him. Those that failed 2, like Scott, those that failed 1, 2, and everything like that. So it's just a simple visualization. It helps you in seeing your data if it's useful for it, and if not, you can always use other format as well. And we can also do something perhaps to mark those that are actually distant as well, that are A students. So, and keep others to be neutral. So we just say this greater than. In our case, if we would like to use for the greater than, this is just a general format, and that's why it's using the same color like the previous one. But do not worry. So we can overlay different functions on each other. We want to say greater than. Of course, it should be greater than 69 because 70 is part of A. So we just write 69. It should be greater than 69. What should be the color? Of course, that's positive. So we use something green, and we simply say OK. So with that simple visualization, we can see the performance of the entire exams. Most students did better in maths and more failed chemistry. Physics was more or less like average. It was split like, yeah, the percentage of the number of students that failed and passed. But then for maths, it's more. We can simply say this is 5 and this is 7. 7 passed. In A's, we have 2 in between, and we have, this is 5 that failed the exam. And it just helps in that simple visualization. And depending on the task you're doing, you can always use other ones. Leave the middle ones as neutral, or if there's a need be, you can actually maybe use color yellow and things like that. So you can change the function depending on, as the case may be. You might change it depending on what the task you are dealing with this thing requires or calls for. So this is just basically using the color function. There are more advanced things you can do with the color function, but I would like to keep it for this now so that it doesn't get the same. We can keep it at the beginner's level and the intermediate level. So aside the color function, conditional formatting doesn't just have to do with colors, because the moment you're saying there's a condition, it means like there's an if. You do this, just a simple exercise we did now with color. We didn't have to write the conditions ourselves, but automatically we made a condition saying that if the score is below 40, mark it red, light red. And if it is above 69, that is an A, mark it green. So we already placed the condition in the statement that if it is this, do this, and if it is this, do this. So, and that's what's going to bring us to the next topic, which is if statements. So we are going to start with the next one. The if statement is a function also already designed in Excel. And if we write the word if, there are different forms of if, but we'll start with the basic one. So if, and as usual, we have the logic statement. So what it is saying here, based on the syntax, is that if the logic test, whatever we want to test, if it is true, that is, whatever logic, whether it is lesser than 30, do this, or if it is greater than, do this. What should it be? So we can simply carry this out with the if function, because as we did before, we just used a built-in function already, whereas there are situations whereby, yes, we'll have to, like here, include the conditions ourselves. It's not everything that is readily available. So let's say for this exam now, we want to define students that passed, and we are saying the benchmark is the cutoff mark. I say the cutoff mark is simply 50. So if you're above 50, 50 and above, you've passed. The moment you're below 50, you failed. So we can do this for, let's say, math, now we don't need the grade. Let me remove the grade for now, or leave it there and create a new cell. So math status. So we can say for the math status exam and simply say if, that is, if your math score is to be above 50, you've passed math. If it is below 50, you failed the math exam. And using this simple statement as we saw earlier, so you just have your if, you use the equal to sign to initiate the function as usual. What is the logic test? The logic test is referring to the condition we want to place in. So what condition do we want to place in? We want to place a condition that if this is what? Greater than, this is the greater than sign. If we want to use greater than or equal to, we just have to add the equal to behind the greater than. If it is less than or equal to as well, you write the less than first and you put the equal to behind it. Because we want to keep it dynamic and not having to write 50 here, you can just simply click on this tab to reference the 50. Since we don't want it to change like we've been doing yesterday, we are going to keep it at this 50, press our Control F4 and make that location an absolute referencing. So we've made the condition that if 87 is greater than or equal to 50, close, that's the condition. The next statement is if true, what should it do? So now we can write statements like here, pass. Why are we writing the pass in a string? Because then it's a text, and if we are not putting it in this form, we are going to have an error. So that it can give us the value pass, we need to put it in this quotation, which makes it like here, we are putting the string in a quotation mark to keep it true. So if the person is above 50, right, pass, we write comma again to move to the next argument. And if it is false, what are we telling the person to do? Simply say fail. And we are done with the argument. So we just need to close it and press equal to. Like press the enter mark. And once we press the enter mark, as we can see, it shows everything. So this is the cell we are comparing, and we are comparing it with this. And we can take it down and apply it to the other ones as well, which if we drag it down, we can see the mark passed, net passed, but unfilled, which corresponds to the value. who are those that failed? George, like he failed as well. And Jenny failed. Donna failed as well, and Stan passed, and we can see the corresponding function. So here we didn't need to call out the text. We just simply want to pass out a text to say whether the person passed or the person failed. So this simple function as well can be done for maths, physics, for physics and chemistry as well as single subject. But then let's say it's a situation whereby we want to complete the entire result status. That is, we don't want to, let me delete the grade for now, and if we need it later. So let's say in a situation whereby, is there a question from Nafisat? I don't think so. So let's say in a situation whereby we would like to compute the entire result based on all subjects. That is, for each of these subjects, you must pass 50 to have passed. The moment you are below 50 in each of them, or in just one of each, you're going to fail. So we are trying to like evaluate the entire result. Let's move out of Mac. Let's move it somewhere. Okay, and what we're going to say is we moved the cutoff mark, but Excel is good enough to know that we've changed our reference location. And now if you click on it, it's still identifying the same value in a different location to the before, to where it was before. So we don't need to actually change that much. It can recognize that, provided we referenced it appropriately. So let's say we want to write the entire results. So this is the general result. We want to know whether you passed. And for you to have passed, you must have passed all subjects, that is math, physics, and chemistry, having at least 50, above 50 in each of them. So that means we need to check maths above 50, physics above 50, chemistry above 50. That will be more or less like writing an if statement for each of them, which in this situation, there's a function that allows that. So what Excel did was that they created a function which is ifs, meaning you can have more than one criteria to judge something. So we just write if, and as we can see the last one with an S. So ifs, let's go back. Okay, and this is the text which says it checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns the value corresponding to the first true condition. So we are just checking if this is right, or if this is right, or if this is right. So in this situation, we go on with our if condition, and then we can lock it up if this same thing greater than or equal to, we use our cell referencing F4. So we've entered it and we simply press F4. Yep. So comma, and now what should be the logic value if it is distant? If it is, what should be the value if true? So this is for the first one. You say pass. And now we need to enter the second logic one, which is this. If it is true, what should it do as well? But what should be the condition? This must also be greater than 50, which is the greater than, equal to, the same reference again. We lock it, we close it, and if it is true, what should be? Still the same condition, pass. And we have the third one, which if we say greater than or equal to, still the same condition, we use absolute referencing again. If it is true, what should you do? to write pass. So in our condition, we've logged 8, and we can see 87 is above 50, 91 is above 50, 60 is above 50. If we replace this all the way down as well, why is it saying this? Because in this situation, none of the conditions, or before I talk about this, we didn't write a condition to include if it is below 50, what should it do? But as we can see in this second, that is with Ned, all the subjects were also above 50. But then for Scott, for example, only one is above 50, 38 is below, and 18 is below. And why is it doing this? Because it felt one of the conditions is already above, and the moment one of the conditions is met, automatically it writes pass. So when the other conditions are distinct, regardless of the number, when the other conditions are not met, but one of the conditions is met, we are going to see a pass. And that's why if we compare the other ones as well, we're going to have the pass, as we can see here. But in this situation, Hans, which was not above 50 in all conditions, because there was not an entry of what should be the remark after it is in a situation whereby all conditions or none of the conditions were met. That's why it's writing this NA, which if we check the text, a value is not available to the formula or to the function. So what we can do in this case is using an AND or an IF statement. So if we want to evaluate in a situation whereby we want to make sure that every one of them pass, we need to use an AND or an IF statement. So instead of using this if, we can use an IF statement with another statement, which is if we want to say if one of them pass, so that would be an OR statement, that is at least one of them. So and in a situation just like the logic says, we are saying the maths or physics or chemistry. So at least one of them must pass. So we need to include a function inside the if statements, which is the OR function. So the OR function checks whether any of an argument is true. And if it is true, it returns the value for the true. And if it is false, it returns the value for the false. So there is a function called OR, and we just use the function as well. So the first bracket was for the if function, and now we have the OR function. So what should be the logic? The logic is that this should be greater or equal to our cutoff mark, absolute referencing again, or this should be greater or equal to our absolute referencing. We can use it just the F4. And for the last one, we use chemistry should be greater or equal to the same cutoff mark. We lock it down, and then we can close, since we only have 3 arguments to compare, that is 3 logical statements. We only have 3 distances we are comparing against one fixed cutoff mark. It's possible for us to have a situation whereby physics has a different cutoff mark and chemistry has a different one. There, instead of us using the same one, we will just change to those ones. But since it is the same year, that's why just one cell is being used as a reference. So to close it, we just close the OR. So the moment we close the OR, we can see the bracket itself is red, showing that we've closed out on this function. And now we are returning back to the if. So for the if statement, the logical test is this entire OR statement. That is, check if any of this is true. Then if it is true, what do? Return pass. And if it is false, which we can say value if false, simply return fail. And now we can close our argument and press the equal to. For the first case, all subjects were passed, and if we take it down, now we have a better result saying that almost all the students passed at least one subject, but then Ant was the only one that failed all three. So results for at least one subject. Result for at least one subject. So we have that almost all passed aside from Ants. On the if statement, are there questions or do we proceed?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I quite understood the whole process because I followed it. But I just wanted to explain theoretically, how to use if or statements. Why didn't we just use the ifs and get the results? Why do we have to go to if or just theoretically? I did the process and it worked, but just the theory I want to understand.
Okay. In our situation here, when we're using the ifs alone, there are no conditions. It's checking for at least one condition should be right, but then there was not an entry slot for us to enter if it was false. And that was why when we got to AND, we had an NA, which it gave us a warning sign that a value was not entered. So it's carrying out the same function, but the if is more appropriate when you're certain that at least one function is going to hold true. But peradventure, there's a person or an entry whereby all conditions are not met, then you're going to have a warning sign, which means it's the person, of course, did not pass, but then you can easily have a better structure to your answer, just like in this case, whereby, yes, we just had to write that, yeah, this person failed. Now we can say they failed instead of having to deal with a warning sign. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So if we want to do a condition whereby we are saying they must pass all, that is, all subject must be passed and all subject must be above. Oh, Ifoma, please go on. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I wanted to ask, is it possible for us to write the if function first and all the logical values that if this is this, if this is this, and then later put the or? Instead of putting or first before the logical values, you put the if and the criteria, then you put or, then what you want it to do.
Okay, so I get your question. That's using if repeatedly. Yes, we can do that.
Yes.
Which it's going to be this. We can do that 100%. So we write the if statement if this is greater than or equal to, this is our criteria, so 50, we can lock it as usual, close it, and this is the section whereby if it is true, what should you return? This case, we just want to test for one of them, right? So it's fine, we can just write our pass. And in this section whereby we are saying if it is false, so this is where we will now include the next if statement, something similar to what we did yesterday for the X lookup.
Okay.
So if it is false, don't just say the person has failed. Carry out another if function. So we write if again, and then go to the next one. That is, if the first one is false, go and check this one. So check that value. Is it greater than or equal to the cutoff mark? Lock it. And then this becomes the second criteria. If this is true, return pass. And then if this is false, then we need to now check the third one. So another if statement.
Okay.
So what's the logic for this one? That would be chemistry should be greater than or equal to, still we have to write K2 now. Yes, it's covered already. So we lock it as well, and then we close it. So if it is true, write pass, comma, and if it is false, we don't have anything to test again. So now we can say return false. I mean fail rather, so we tell it to return fail. And after this, so we close it. By closing this one, we can see a change in color. It's referring to this as purple, So this is the last if statement. We are closing it. Then another close bracket to close the second one.
Okay.
And then the third one. So we enter, this is a nested if statement. That is, there's an if within an if. So we are using 3 if statements here. When you do like this, called nested, so we are putting one that is, if this is not true, do this. If this is not true, do this.
Okay.
But in this situation, we can see if we are trying to, let's say we have 4 or 5 criteria, we are just going to make the formula a little bit long when we can simply just use the or statement.
Okay.
So it works perfectly fine, and it's going to give us the same answer.
Okay. Okay.
The same answer. So fail is in both, but then it's just one is a bit more tidier to use than the other one, depending on the number of functions we are dealing with. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay, Oluwakemi, you can ask a question, please.
Okay, please, what's the difference between if and ifs?
Okay, if statement means you just want to consider one condition, just simply one. Just in our example, it allows just one condition inside it. If you're going to be including another condition, you can only include it in the section that says if the first one is not true. So a simple example will be going back to this, or we can just simply make another example. So the moment you write if example, it only checks whether if one condition is true, and it returns a value. What value do you want it to return if it is true? And what value do you want it to return if it is false? So if, and that's why the first thing you enter is the logic test, which check for this. If that is true, what should I return? Or what should I do? It might not be just pass. You might say it should do a further calculation, or it should do something else. So just like the example of what we did yesterday with XLOOKUP, we could have used if condition as well. That is, check if this amount the person has sold, if it is this thing greater than or equal to this amount. If so, use this value. So we can always enter a formula for when it is true as well, and not necessarily entering a comment. But in our case, it's a simple one, and it's just to enter the formula. So if it is true, do this, and if not, do this. So if condition is just one, you can enter only one condition. But when you go for ifs, you can enter more than one condition. However, you're going to enter the first condition and what it should return if it is true. So the issue with ifs is that you can enter more than one condition, and you just enter when it is true. Go for this. So, and showing the example again, ifs can accept more than one condition without us having to include them inside each other. So I just say this, if this is greater than or equal to the cutoff mark. Now let's not bother about absolute referencing. You can say the next thing it's saying is, what should you return if the value is true? Return pass. And the moment I try to leave this argument by entering a comma, it shows the next one that is, okay, what is the next logical argument, which in if we are not saying. That is, you can't enter more than one criteria. You can only use the first section to enter more than one criteria in if, but here we can easily enter multiple criteria to compare them. That is saying that check if this is equal to or this or this or this. But the issue with ifs is that it returns true if one of the conditions is met. So which is the same thing which or does. It's just the issue we have in this situation is that, as we can see here, it's only returning when it is true. How do we return a value when it is false? So the more we keep entering, it's only going to be entering when it is true. Then what does it do when it is false? I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So we can always use our help function to get clarity and just write, yeah, if. Yeah, so this function. And then we see better the syntax here. So if something is true, as we can see, if something is true, one, value if true, then the next one, if something is true, two, that is the second condition, what should be the value? If something is true, three, what should be the value? So the issue here is that we can test for, like, note, the if condition allowed to test up to 127. So you can actually test a huge number of conditions, as you can see here, 127. However, the issue is that what happens when we want to return if something is false? What does it do? Then you have this thing. You have an issue like this. It's just going to return a warning sign with the NA, like we saw earlier, and you don't have an exact return value. So that's why by using the or statement with a simple if, which the simple if has a return value when it is false, so we can use that to return a false argument. That is, if this is not true, return this. So as we can see here, both works for if it is one subject. So yeah, Chante, you can ask a question, please.
Yes, Mr. Doraman. I was just wondering, has the start time for the class changed?
No, it hasn't.
Because I'm logging in like almost time, and then it's like, it seems you guys already started. So I was just like, so it's it's 12 p.m. in Nigerian time, correct?
Yes, 12 p.m. Nigerian time. So I guess there's an issue with your location, which is timing. And then what you might consider is maybe your region is considering what we call a daylight savings time.
Oh, so you guys started like 1 hour ago?
Yes, we started 1 hour ago. So just consider 12 Nigerian time and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm considering. Oh my goodness.
Because right now it's already 1 in Nigeria, so.
Oh yeah, our time moved backward. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's my
No
mistake.
worries.
Our time moved backward, so yeah. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think that answers for Chante. Ifoma, do you still have another question to ask?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So this is doing it for 1, and now we can do it for 3. So doing just more than 1. And as we did for the or statements, which here we did if. In this case, you can't use the if you want to consider or, because you must use the condition that applies to all. And we can't use the ifs as well, because the ifs considers a situation whereby once one of them is true, it sees it as everything is fine. So in a situation that, yes, pass 3 subjects, that is for individuals that they must have passed the 3 subjects, Perhaps I should move the location of my cutoff mark to somewhere below where we can see it. Oh, now. Yeah, it's still going to, the reference is still going to be distant. Like Excel is smart enough to know that we've changed the location and it's still the same thing, so our results are not affected. Like I said, provided the referencing is properly done, you'll be sure to know that our results are not affected. And so for a condition whereby we want to test for students that passed all three, we'll have to use the AND function, which is using if as a condition, then the AND, as we did with the OR. So before the logical statements, that's where we want to consider this and this and this and this. So after initiating it and during the space of the logic test, we include an AND function which checks whether all arguments are true, and it returns true if all the arguments are true. So in this situation as well, you can't enter if they are false. What should it do? You can't, and as such, the OR and AND function must be used, or their function is best utilized when you're using them with another function. So not necessarily if, it could be another one depending on your study situation, but then they should be supporting another function and not the basis of it, because then when all conditions are not true, what do you want Excel to do in that situation? So we have the AND function, and now we are going to test for it. So this should be greater or equal to the cutoff mark, absolute referencing again. And then we enter the second condition, which we're moving to logic 2. That is, this should be greater and equal to cutoff mark as well. Absolute referencing again of the cutoff mark. And we have included the third argument, which is the chemistry result, greater than or equal to the cutoff mark. Absolute. And at this point, we only have 3 conditions to consider. So after including the 3 of them, that is the 3 logical tests, we just need to close it. And by closing it, we can now enter the statement that if it is true, that is, if the student passes or all conditions are met, return pass. And if it is false, we can include something else to be done again, but in our case, just simply fail is all, and we close our function, enter the space, and now we can test for the number of students that passed. And we can use this for scholarship or something to check that, yeah, for students that pass, the school would like to sponsor them for their, the undergraduate or some other competitions like that. So these are simple tasks that you can use to evaluate students, and it goes a long way. So with the if statement, with the AND condition, we can see that only 2 students passed the entire subject, while the others failed at least 1, 2, or 3 in the case of AND. And if we had to scroll here, we can compare it as well with our result, because for now the data is just a few set of data. And for everything, we can always change our condition. Let's say it's a school whereby, yes, it's more lenient, and then the cutoff mark is 40. So we don't need to enter this whole function again. All we just need to do is just to change it here, and everything is going to apply. So perhaps the 40 is not showing a big impact in terms of this. So let's see. This is not possible, but let's see something like 20. And then we can see it's more visible. So by using 20, we can see someone like Bob, who had 26 in maths, we considered as passed, but then 20 is not a feasible score, only if depending on the context. But if it's an exam like math, physics, chemistry, at least where we come from, 20 is not a cutoff mark for pass. So these are ways in which you can always evaluate. And now by doing that, all students at least passed one, because Anne had 32 in physics. So he was lucky to at least be considered to have passed at least one subject. And then the school could be strict as well to make the cutoff mark 65. And now we can see only one student is worthy of our scholarship by passing all three, even with 65. And that's because the lowest for mark is 66. So these are ways in which we can use the if statement with another distance with another one, or just the if alone by including conditions into it that, yes, we'd like you to do this when this condition is true, and if it is false, do the other one. So this is the if statement. For other programming languages as well, as you will find once you start their classes as well, the if condition it's also there, although Excel is more or less like the most user-friendly interface you can find. Even though it can't do all tasks in the best manner or as might be preferred, from time to time, your tasks might need you to use others as well, but Excel goes a long way in being handy. So we'll stop here for now. If there are no questions, we can go on our break and then return back after 10 minutes. So do we have any questions before we go on break? Kindly raise up your hands, and if there are none, that's good. So in the absence of none, we can go on our 10 minutes break and return back 18 minutes past the hour. So whatever time zone you are, 18 minutes past, we are 8 minutes now, and we can return 18 minutes past the hour. See you after the break.
Hello, Helium. He's a little nervous, isn't he?
Yeah, so welcome back from the break. Believe most of us should be back by now, and then we can continue the class. Yeah, for time as well. Come back. So, do you have any questions over the break? Like, did any question pop up? And if none, we can proceed with the class then. So we started with the if statements again, and we've done the if. We've seen how it deals with using the ifs as well, that is multiple conditions, as well as if we use the if with or statement as we did here, and if we use the if with and statement as we did here as well. So what we can do as well is that, yeah, regardless of the score, we just want to make sure that the student passes if average is above 50. So average should be greater than or equal to 50. So that's a function we can use in Excel as well. As we have seen from the previous exercise, on average alone, is just to multiply each of them and divide by 3, as is in this case, which is just 3 distinct 3 variables. And why can we use average? Because they are all of distinct equal standing. That is, the mark is over 100, over 100, and over 100. So we want to evaluate more students based on if average is greater than less than 50, then we'll consider them to have passed regardless of their score in the other ones. So we are more concerned about the average instead of the individual score, which we can still do for, let's return our cutoff mark to 50 to be fair. So yeah, with our cutoff mark being 50, we can use the function, which is this if the equal to sign to initiate. So if we have our if, then we introduce the average function, which is just by spelling average, and the first one So average. And now to select numbers. So there are 3 numbers which are to be considered. So we close the bracket. Why are we closing the bracket? Average is to consider the 3 numbers in this case, which is these 3. So our logic statement is if the average, that is after computing the average of this, if it is greater or equal to the value we have here, which we can log again. So if it is greater than that, what do we want it to do? We enter a comma, write it to have been passed. And then the statement, if it is fail, if fail, write it to have been fail. And close the bracket. So by pressing the enter key, we have executed the function. And since it is logged, it's going to carry it out for the other ones as well. So just this, and by clicking on this, we can see the reference again. So it's doing the average of this, comparing it with the cutoff mark, and the moment it passes, it's true, right pass, and if it fails, right fail. And now we have more students that passed compared to checking it as, each subject by subject. So with the total average, that is for each the general average per student, we can see that yes, more students pass the exam as compared to if we had to compare each that year. So based on each subject. So the cutoff mark, depending on the study case and the task we are dealing with, it might be average that works best for us, and if not, we might want to consider them as individual. So these will be the functions we'll carry out with the if statements. And now we can move further to other advanced functions of if. So we don't have just the if statements. There are other functions that are similar to if. So they carry out something when the condition is right, because if itself has to deal with a condition. That is, if something is true, do this, and if something is false, do this. So for the if condition, Excel has been designed that there are other conditions that we can use. We have the count if. So if something is a value that we specify, count it. We have the sum if. We have even the average we did now, there's an average if. So there, if functions, they are all conditional statements that they carry out the task when a condition that has been identified in them is fulfilled. And we can even have in the situation where we use the if statement and then we are unable to enter the error message, it came to mind now we could have used a condition called the if error. So the if error statement is whereby we have a condition whereby it's only taking in true values. So we have to put this condition before it, that is, if these values are not true, then this is what you should return. So there's the if error condition as well. But we'll try to go through everything with these tags we have. So these are just samples of the if statements and things we can do with the if statements. So clear this. This is a general data that we can have. So we have the order dates, we have the region, we have the representative. Let's say we are a big company, so this representative, and these are the items sold or ordered, because once they're ordered from us, it means we are selling them out. This is the unit that is being sold. And this is, of course, is the unit cost, that is the unit per one item. So if we are saying DEX is the item to be sold that is ordered, and this is the unit, that's the amount they are ordering, and this is the amount per one DEX. So to get the total amount, which in this question, they're not giving us the total sales, they want us to calculate it ourselves. And the formula is simply that, yes, total is equal to units or we can just use an extent. Yeah, so unit multiplied by unit cost. So that's the formula, which means that the amount, the amount to buy one multiplied by the number of items you're buying, which is same thing if you're buying something, which one of it is 10 naira. If you're buying 5, that will be 5 times times 10, which is the amount for one, and you'll be paying the person 15 naira. So the range of this data set is from, let's count. So we have 43 entries. As we can see here, just 43 entries are the data. So we can calculate the total by writing equal to the cost or the units, its multiplication, whichever one you place in front doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it carries out the function. So an E2, which is referencing the units, as we can see here, so multiplied by the unit cost, which is F2. And the total price in this case is 250. So we can simply just click down or drag it down. Either way, it's just by coming here, we have seen a change in the shape of the plus sign. Just double click on it and it replicates it all the way down. By multiplying the units with the units with the price per an item, and we have everything to the last one. So here we can calculate the total sales. Like here, how much you sold, total money that has been made for the company, that will be equal to just the sum of everything above it. So the sum function, we have open brackets, and then we can go through the entire range, which is starting from G2. G1 is the header, of course. So we have from G2 to G44, which is the last row with the last cell with an information for this row as well as the column. So G44, which once we close it, it gives us the sum. So what we can do is we can make it with, since these are monetary terms, we can include the symbol there, just make it an accounting by just pressing the dollar sign, and then the dollar appears in front of it. So that's we can do, and then it's seen as a monetary value with respect to dollar for our example. So this is a simple table, and it's possible for us to get this table as well. Then the question becomes, if you are told to calculate what is the number of items that were ordered for each item, that is each item we have decks, we can see pencil, we are seeing binder pencil, we are seeing a pen set. And so these are different set of items. And now we have different regions, we have different rep. So some of the questions we can have is, what is the total sales per, the total sales per item per region. And what that means is that what is the number of sales per item, that is decks, how many decks, which is the item, was sold in each region. So we can get it in terms of number of units, that is how many decks were sold, how many quantity of decks, as well as then in terms of sales value, what was the amount that was made from selling decks in each region. So a simple way to do it is we can use the filter function. Let's see how many values we have below each of them. So this is the filter function. Under the home menu, we come down to filter, and by using the filter, which shows the drop down of everything below it. For the first one, it is categorizing them to year, which is that we have 2014 and 2015. Okay. For region, we have how many regions? We have the central, we have the east, and we have the west. Blanks are the ones below it. So for reps, how many reps do we have? We have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Think about 11 reps. So there are 11 representatives. And how many items are we selling? We have just 5 items that we are selling, excluding the select all as well as the blank, which means empty cells, of course. So we have 5 items that we do sell. As a company, quantity doesn't matter because then these are just numbers that could be anything. And the cost as well is related to the cost. So if you are to say that, yeah, create a table called the total quantity per item per item per region. Yep. So how many amount of this thing, how many amount of each item are we selling in each region? Just as we have seen here, we can write out, because this is a short list, we can write out your binder, desk, pen, pencil, pencil. You can start writing them out by typing them as a text, but that will be a lot of time consuming. It will be time consuming and less efficient because there are functions that can help us pull out this data without us having to write the item ourselves. So to write this item, and even if I want to write the item out, there's a function called unique. So what unique does is that it checks the range of the value you're telling it, whether it is a text or it is a number. It checks that range and it brings out just one function, no matter the number of times it is written. That is, no matter the number of times dex is repeated, it's only going to write out one dex. Why? Because it's a repetition. So it only brings out a unique distance, that is only unique values or numbers, that is, it could be text or numbers. Only unique values are returned, that is, whether it is just one dex and without the need to write them multiple times. So in this case, we have the unique function just by writing unique. What is the array that we want to include, that we want to bring out it from? So it is from item. Item is the header. So we have dex from the beginning to the end, which is of course D2 in column D, and from row 2 to row 44, which is the last row with a value. We close it. By closing it, we just press the enter button. And now we can see that it has listed it out itself without us having to do the whole thing of writing, oh, there's dex there, there's pencil there, there's binder there, there's pen there, and there's pen sets there. So this is a better way to do it, whereby, yes, we have it all listed out. So there were a number of times in which these items were repeated, but then unique function just writes it once. And it's more or less like removing duplicates. It's a function that removes duplicates and just write out a single function. However, in this function, we can do something further to it that say that we want it to be arranged based on rows. That is, let's cut this and move it to the top and call these items. So items, so that becomes the header. Item becomes the header. So what we can do is we have these values. We can see we only entered the formula here, but because there were a number of variables that were below, it's replicated it downward. And that's why this was the cell which we entered the formula. We can see it is bold here. The moment we scroll down to the other ones, we can see it's a bit faint because it's telling us that the result of what we entered here was what's propelled to the down part as well. So if we would like to sort these values based on in an alphabetical order, all we just need to do is to use the sort function. As we said, there's a sort function here, which is sort A to Z or sort Z. But instead of using this all the time, you can just simply use the sort inbuilt function. So since we want this result first, and then we want the sort to sort this result. So the sort must be the one outside, while the unique does the job inside. So we enter after the equal to sign, as is above here, we enter the word sort. And the moment you're writing it is saying sort. You could use sort by, but in our case, simply sort is fine. So sort, and then put everything that includes unique all within sort. So we need to enter the brackets to enclose unique. And by doing that, we have it properly sorted alphabetically. So we have binder before desk, before pen, pen set, and pencil. We are trying to create a table. So we've spooled out the items. Now we need to spool out the regions as well. So we have region, we have central, east, and west. Since we have east and west, we can do the same thing that we just did here, equal to, was it unique function. We go to the first value under the region. We go all the way down, which is B2 to B44. We close it as well, and we press enter. So we can sort this as well. We are lucky that the value came back as central first before east and west. But of course, we can use the sort function just to be on the safe side.
Let's see.
So by doing that, we've sorted the function out. But then we wanted to create a table whereby we have item, and then the region should be this thing. That is, the item should be on the vertical side, while the region should be on an horizontal line, that is in one row, whereby we can say this item binder was ordered this number of times in this region. So it means it being straight like this is not the best thing. We expect east to be here and west to be here. As I said, you can write this, type this manually, but of course there are functions to do this for you as well. So the function itself is called to row. So we have to column, but in this case, it's already in column, so we don't need to use it. But the one we'll be using today is called to row, which means return the array as one row. The number of whatever you've written, put them in different columns, but one row. So that's what we'll be putting in front of the function we had before. We just need to include before the sort to the last one to row, and then we close everything as well, because the row is the main function outside, and the moment we press enter, so we have three functions here in carrying out a simple task. We have to row, we have sort, and we have unique. And the moment we press that, we can see it is now all in one row and to the side. So we have a table whereby we want to say how many items of binders were sold in the central region. How many items of binder were sold in the east region? How many were sold in the west region? So this can be done by simply using the count statement as we did before. But now we are not just simply counting. We want to count based on a criteria that, yes, so it must be binder and it must be central. Meaning we don't even have just one criteria, we have two criteria. So maybe what I'm going to do first is, before I do this, let me copy this and place it down here. Oh, I cut it instead of copying. So let me copy this one, place it down. Okay, so sort the reference. You're going to change that. For the item, the items are on this thing D. So I simply write D2 to D44, I believe. Yeah, that's to D44. So we have the binder. And for this one, I'm going to remove it. And why I'm doing this one first is to use the if condition. So here we just write count or total quantity. Sorry about that. Total quantity. So we have total quantity. So in this case, let's say we want to count the quantity, the total quantity per item without the region first. So we would like to count how many, regardless of what region it was sold, how many of the items you are selling were actually sold in each this thing were sold totally for the 2 years period, regardless of what was this thing, regardless of which region it was sold or which year it was sold. So we are not bothered about the year. And now we use the count function. But as we can see here, the count function will only count the cells. Now we have a condition that it must be binder, it must be dex, and it must be pen. So we are going to use the count if function, which is this count if. So when we want to use the count if function, you must say the range is going to count from. What do we want to count? We want to count what? We want to count this dex all the way down. That's the range. What must be the criteria? The criteria is going to be, that's the first one, must be what? These words, because you must look for these words within this set. So you need to look for these words within this set. So close that. And then we press enter. So what we've just done here now is to count the number of times binder was reflected in this place. Okay. So we've counted the number of times binder is in this place. However, that is not the total quantity of binders. Why? Because in this case, for the dex was written once here, the quantity that was sold is actually 2. So in this, for this tax itself that has to do with quantity, count is not the best function, but sum will be the best function, because we need to sum up these values based on these criteria. So I just wanted to show the function of count and how it works, but the function we are going to be using is sum if. So we'll be using the sum if function, but what we can use the count function here is to count the number of times decks were ordered. Yeah, so this will not be the number of quantity, but rather the total number of maybe ordered dates per items. So the number of days in which each items were ordered, that would be a better name for this, because this is only counting items were ordered 15 days throughout the entire 2 years data we have. And since the functions we have here, which is the table period itself, we need to lock it so that it doesn't move around. So for the D period, we just need to press our Control F4 and lock it. And for the criteria that it is in column J, row 6, it is fine because we like it to change to dex, to pen, and to pencil set and the like. So we can leave that free. And what we just need to do is drag it down. And by dragging it down, we can see the number of days in which these items were ordered. So dex was only ordered on 3 different days. Aside from 3 days, there was not any other day within the 2 years period in which dex was ordered, regardless of the region or the rep that sold it. So this is this will be this will be total quantity, but number. So that will be count. Just put it as count. So this is just simply counting the number of ordered days in which these functions were ordered. But then if we would like to do this total number of quantity, that will be more here. So let me just copy and place it here. Are there any questions at this point? If none, if there are, please feel free to do so. So if that's for the count function, but if we would like the quantity, we will be using the if statement. And as we saw for the count if, let's just initiate the count if again. The count if, there are situations just like the if statement as well, whereby you'll be needing more than one condition. And so you can use the count if, and then you can use just only the count, depending on what your situation warrants. So we have not just the count if, but then when you have more than one criteria you would like to consider, something like our example here, you can use the count if function. So that was just to explain the sum. So to use sum, similar stuff, we can use our function, say sort, then unique, the last one, unique item from the second one all the way down, and close and close. And we have our items again, just using the unique function. And to do the sum, we have to use the sum if statement, which is if it is this, sum it up. So count was just to count, but if it is 8, sum it up. So to sum up, we have to write equal to initiate, sum if. So it adds up the cell specified by a given condition or criteria. So we have the sum if. So for the sum if, the first thing you need to enter is the range. What range is this to look into? Still the same range. We want to look at D all the way down. Close it. What criteria do we want it to look at? What criteria do you want it to look at? Look for these. Then we enter a bracket. Then what is this sum range? This range is referring to what you actually want to sum up, which is the quantity, which are under units. So we enter it as well. So what we are telling it here is that sum the quantities up if you see any item based on these items. And then it is telling us that this is telling us that 722 binders were ordered within this year period. That is, sum the quantity, this is a function, sum the quantity, which is on a different column, as opposed to count, sum the quantity if you are seeing the item specified here in this range. So what it's going to do for binder is it's going to come starting from the table. It says binder here, and it says what's the quantity? 11. Okay, it takes 11. It goes to the next one. Oh, binder is also here. It takes it 28, 11 plus 28. It looks at the next one, binder, another 28 plus 28. So it keeps adding it up wherever it sees binder on this list, and then it adds up the units that were sold. So this gives us a better idea on the quantity that was sold as opposed to the number of count days, because this is more important and it gives us a real value as compared to this count. But then just to show an example of how count if can be used as a function, which is also a conditional formatting, because we are trying to derive some information based on the known ones we have. So what we need in this formula is to lock the region. We need to lock the region it's considering so that we can just drag it down. So by locking that region, we have it that yes, calculates based on these two regions. We need to lock the region of the sum region as well so that it doesn't move at the end as well. So we need to lock the sum region, and then the criteria which is in between can be left open. So by dragging this down, we'll be able to see the number of items that were ordered. So for Dex that was ordered only 3 times throughout the entire 2 years, only 2 quantities were ordered all through. And for pen, we can see this thing. So as a company, we can know there are products that it's selling and the ones that are not selling. So from this, let's say we have this thing, we know what to have in our warehouse and what not to have in our warehouse. We know that binder is a good product for us that we are selling very well. We are selling a lot of pencils. We can consider the pen set and the pen to be average. But if we'll be thinking of removing one product from our company that something will not be selling again, for a 2-year period based on this data, we can all agree that DEX is not really selling well, then we can remove it. However, this might be a very, how would I call it? A very, light way of thinking, because the reason is that the quantity might not be a big factor, but a bigger factor should be the price. That is, how much are we making from this item? If the amount, because based on the DEX price, as we can see here, the price of one DEX is $125 US. Compare that to the price of a pencil, which is just $1.29. So with this in mind, how many pencils will we need to sell before we can actually equate it to the cost of a DEX? So more than just the quantity, which helps you in what do we put in our store, what do we remove, the prices as well could go a longer way in helping you calculate what is important and what is not. So for that as well, we are going to use the sum function for the sales which have the total price. So how much did we gain from selling these quantities? So here I used just the sum if function, and now we have two criteria, and we like to use the sum ifs. So more than just one criteria, consider the second criteria as well. Are there any questions at the moment? I guess none. That's good. So I believe you are following good. So to the sum ifs, this is the sum if which allows more than one condition. So unlike in the sum if situation, the range we wanted to add up itself was the last criteria we included. But for the sum if, because there could be more than one criteria, they switched the position and made it the first one you must include. So which range do we want to include? We are dealing with, this is now sales and not quantity. I'm going to change the header. So now let's deal with the sales that were made and not the quantity. So this should be the range from the first total to the, not the last one, because the last one is showing the total sales over, but to the last row. So we'll exclude this one because this is just showing the total sales so far. So that will be the sales region, sales range rather, going back up to our formula. So we have the sales range. After fulfilling the sales range, the first thing is, what's the first criteria range? Our first criteria range is check for the item. So check item, which is here, the column D, check item from the beginning to the end. That's the range. And now what should you check in that range? Check for this item. Binder as the first criteria. By the time we close the argument, we can see it's telling us if we have more other criteria, we should include them. So what's the other criteria we want to include? It is region. So we are dealing with region, and we are saying region, the first one to the end, that's the region, this thing, range as well. We're closing it. What region do we want it to be the criteria? We have to take it to the top. And then this is the one we want to be the criteria. That is, search for central in that region. This is central. And now we don't have more criteria to add. So we just close the bracket and we press enter. So this is telling us that throughout the entire data period we have, binder was sold in central, and this is the total sales that was made from selling binder. So we change this to total sales per item per region. That is, in the central branch, almost 6,000 US dollars were sold. The company was able to make almost 6,000 from selling binder. And before we can move this stuff to the other ones, we need to make absolute referencing of some cells. That is the cell in which is to sum up. Don't change your location, absolute referencing. The cell in which it is looking for the criteria, that is the first one, absolute referencing. The cell it is looking for the second criteria, B, which is the region, absolute referencing. And then these criteria themselves, for like binder now, everything is in J, but in different rows. So we can put before the J, we can put the $sign. Here we won't use the F4, which we can use as well, but we have to press it multiple times. But you can simply press your shift as well as the $sign on your keyboard. And we are placing it in front of the J. Why? Make J constant, while the rows, which is F14, it can be changing depending on the next one. For the region location, that one is going to be fixed. Why? Because we don't want it to change at all. For this particular going down, it is still central regardless of the item. So we are going to make the entire value, pressing F4, make it an absolute referencing. And now we can press the enter button. So by doing this, we can drag it down. And now we have the amounts that were made by selling this item in the other regions as well. It is not easy for us to just, by dragging it down here, we can press it, and now we can see the region we're adding up is still the same, fixed. The criteria region for the first one is fixed. The item moved to the right thing we are considering for this corresponding row. It moved to the right one. So we are searching for pen sets. For the region, it's still central, fixed, and the value is right. But we can't just simply drag this to the east. If we do so, don't forget when we use central up there, we made it absolute referencing. And that means the value here, as we can see, is the same thing with central. So if we click on this, and we click on it like this, we can see it is on central instead of east. What we can do is we can simply just come to this highlighted cell. You can see the moment we are on it, it's a bit bolder, and just get close to it and drag it to where we want it to be. And automatically Excel reference change the reference. Is the last item in our argument, is the last argument in our formula, which is K3. If we drag it like this to the next one, you can see it changes to L3. But that we can do, if we are not familiar with this, we can simply come and then say, where is East? East is under L, and it is what? It is row 13. So we just change the K to L ourselves, and then we can see it move and press the equal to sign. So the moment we did this, it is showing an error sign because we just copied it before. So it's calling our attention that we want to do this, but this is a warning sign, which is not an error. If we drag it down, it will affect it appropriately as well. So we can see no decks was sold in the East at all, and other distinct items were sold. So for the East branch, we should just automatically know that we don't need to supply that branch with decks anymore. So same thing for West. If we click above, we're going to see it's still referencing Central, which is not the desired location. So we can just change it so it is under M, M13 still. So we just change the K to M, and now we have the value. Why did it stop showing the warning sign? Because it saw that we're not following the syntax from this row, but we have a desired one for this row. This we can also drag down, and here as well, we can see that pen sets are not sold in the East at all. So this is a way in which you can see your sales from the data set and then see what you are selling in each region and the amount you're making from selling each item in the respective region. So from this, we can see that here, which item are we making money from the most? Even though in terms of quantity is binder, we can still see from the sales is also still binders. And the most profitable region, which we can add up, we can say sum of what we have above. And then we can easily drag this one. These ones are not affected. So if we click on it, it's referencing the above pattern. So you might use just the reference, and if you're not comfortable with it, you can simply press the sum here again, just to be sure. But to confirm where, if what you're adding up is truly correct, you can always click on this top space, and then it's going to highlight what you have done, and you can always confirm whether it's correct or it's not. So this is a simple way to know the branch you are making money from, the branch that is not making a lot of money. So as we can see here, the central branch is the most profitable one. From the east, it's fairly, the west, not so good. So these are ways in which you can do analysis from a general table such as this, and then calculate based on item and the region. So what we could have done as well is to make this calculation based on the reps. That is, we can try to know which employee is making the most for the company, that is more or less to assess who is working and being profitable and who is not. And then we can introduce like the commission factor into it and say, oh, since you are making these sales, we're going to be giving you this amount. And we can even use the conditional formatting we did before to more or less say that, you
guys are mad anyhow.
So coming back here, we can use the conditional formatting and say that, the lesser than. So we can do the lesser than function and say an amount. Let's look for any amount below 500 is low performance. That's respective of the item and the region. So, and just simply press OK. And by doing that, we can see a visualization from our table that yes, which regions are not, which item in which regions are not meeting up the criteria of 5,000 or 500 US dollars. So this will be all for today's class. As I can see, we're already at the time. If there are questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Hi, Mr. Abdurrahman. Sorry, Mr. Abdurrahman. It's Shante.
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Yeah, so for the class video of yesterday, I don't seem to have it.
Yeah, it has not been shared. It was asked in the early hours of the class.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's been promised that it's going to be made available as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, I guess there are no further questions. I believe, very clear. Thank you for the feedback. Yes, so for the assignments, since there were no assignment last week, we'll be having a joint assignment this week, and be sure it's not something out of what we've learned. It's all related to the questions we've learned so far. So a minute, please. Just so that I can share us the okay. Can we see a PDF file?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be the assignment. However, in terms of the deadline, you'll be updated, but that will be dependent on how soon we get the videos uploaded. So if yesterday's class and today's class is uploaded between now and tomorrow, we are still going to stick with this deadline. But if not, the new deadline will be communicated on the Slack channel. So this is an individual assignment, of course. You're not expected to do it as a group. If peradventure, as participants, you know one another, that's not no one. We are not discouraging interacting, but then you can ask from the person that I do not recall how this was done, or like, could you explain this to me, if need be, and if you need general assistance, you can always beep us up as well on the Slack channel, but not for us to tell you like, yeah, this is what you do to answer this question, but then we can explain to you what the question is saying. So it's an Excel table, which I'm going to share after this, but from the Excel table, you have a general data similar to what we just dealt with, and you're asked to simply calculate the total price for each order on the list, to calculate the total sales per product per the region, the total quantity sold per product per the region, the total sales per city, because there's a city in the data as well. For the last question, which is the F statement, that is calculate the total sales per month per city, we've not done this, so the F question is not going to be in the question that will be shared with you, but the assignments will be shared shortly after the class with you. So these are just the questions so that you can practice what we've learned and then get better at it. It's not to downgrade anyone, but practice, of course, makes perfection. So we want you to have these tasks for you to practice it yourself, see how it goes, not just watching the video, but for you to see how you're doing a task yourself by having just the data alone, and then try to implement what we've learned so far. So I'm sure it's going to be an easy task for you to deal with.
Okay, Mr. Abdurrahman Ghazal, are you done with everything you want to communicate with the participants?
Okay, just a minute more. So this is the Excel file that will be shared with you. Do please include your names here. And while you are trying to upload your files, please just rename the file using this syntax here to include your last name and your first name, even though there's a possibility for someone to still bear the same, but just use the syntax and we'll try to identify different individuals as best as we can. And yeah, like I said, this is just the data, simple syntax, and be sure that yeah, it's going to be an easy one. So that will be all for me in the absence of no question. Yeah, Mr. Berman, you can continue.
All right, once again, thank you very much for the amazing session. And to all the participants, I would like to congratulate you all for making it this far. Just like the instructor said, the assignment is for us to be able to practice all of the things that you guys have been taught. The best you could do for yourself is to ensure you do it no matter the amount of time it's going to take you. And as I said, you can, ask people questions, you can check stuffs online, perhaps some parts that are not very clear and all of that. You can ask, but try to do it yourself because it's more of learning by doing. That's just the way it is. If you don't try to do it yourself, there's no way you'll be able to implement those things. And we should not be fixated on, I want to obtain the certificate alone. No, should be more focused on gaining the knowledge and being able to apply them. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Abdurrahman Ghazal, for the amazing session, and to all our participants. You all have been amazing. We hope that you'll be able to continue with this learning enthusiasm to the end of the program. As Mr. Abdraman has said, if there are no further questions for today, we'll try to ensure we upload the video as soon as possible. Let me use it that way, because sometimes there are some delays that are not foreseen, right? But if there are no delays, if there are no issues, latest tomorrow, the 2 videos should be ready. I'm going to share it across to you guys. So I think this is where we are going to stop for today. I should also remember it is a continuous learning process. You can also explore other aspects that are probably not touched in the class. So, okay, someone just raised his hand. If Mr. Abdurazak Are, if you have a
Yeah, thank
question.
you very much, Adisa Ramon. Please, I just want to call our attention to the fact that if it's possible, the link for everyday's class, like the weekend class, Saturdays and Sundays, maybe let's have it maybe like 30 minutes on the Slack channel before the class, before that 12 o'clock time, or maybe on our emails. Because like today now, I had to send the message through a WhatsApp group to someone, maybe one of the coordinators, to get the link. So I think that sometimes makes us start the class a bit after that time. I think that is what I want to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the comments. If you observe, usually there's a reminder mail that's sent to all participants at least 30 minutes before the commencement of the class. But if the host has not started the class, oftentimes the link would not work, or you'll be getting an error message. So I think that's the aspect we are going to work on to ensure we start the class before 12. So whoever wants to join can always join, and there will be no issues. And maybe if there is need, you can always send it, maybe resend, let me use it that way, before the commencement of the class. So thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you very much.
Ononuga Adekunle, can go on, please. Mr. Ononuga Adekunle, your hand is raised. Mr. Ononuga Adekunle.
Yes, hello, I'm with you. Hello?
All right, you raised your hand. Do you want to say something?
Yes, I have a question. The question is the Zoom
Sorry,
link.
I can't hear you well.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you a little. Can go on, please.
Yes, I said the link for the class. I don't know what the organizers can do. We always find it very difficult joining. I don't know, maybe you need to be sending the link maybe 30 minutes before the class, so that at least we'll be able to. Because once you use a particular link on a Saturday, it doesn't work the next day. That's the challenge I encountered. I could not get the link to participate today until I have to chat with someone to send another link to me. So I don't know what help can the organizer do concerning that.
All right, thank you very much for the observation. And as the earlier person said, he also said the same thing. And we're going to work on it and ensure we face the same difficulties subsequently. So once again, we sincerely apologize for that, and we're going to try to ensure it doesn't occur again.
Then
okay.
The second question is,
okay, go on,
I have
please.
2 questions. The
go
second
on,
question is for the assignments. How do we generate the data for the assignments? Is it the same data that we use in the class, or we are going to generate another data for that?
We are not going to generate any data. All the things you need to do the assignment will be sent to all participants. The data you need, the task you are supposed to do, everything will be sent to you.
Is it to our email address?
Very likely your email address.
All right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Yeah. Someone, Mrs. or Mr. Fadila Falalu, you can go on with your question.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you. I can hear you.
Okay, my question is there a breakdown for all what we are going to learn throughout the bootcamp?
You mean the content of each courses you are going to be taking? Hello, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If
Yes, not
if
likely each course, just all the courses that we're going to learn.
okay, just all the courses you are going to be taking. So
What are
you have
they?
Excel, you have SQL, you have Python, and you have Power BI. Those are the 4 courses we are looking at taking in the in the period of the bootcamp. Is it clear, please? Hello, can you hear me? Is it clear?
Mr. Ramon.
Yes.
Yeah, please. I think that's the question she wants to ask.
Okay,
So I just want to add to it.
thank you.
Can I go on?
Yes, please.
Yes, for each of the course, like for the Excel, the instructor gave us a breakdown of the course content, but we couldn't get it down. I couldn't write it down. So I don't know if you could send us that content again so that we're going to know, okay, we've learned this and we're going to learn this at the end of the day. And for the other packages too, like the Power BI, if it's possible, let's have a breakdown of the content. So we'll know that, okay, I've maybe to be able to know that, okay, I've learned something on this topic or on this package, so that let's know how we are progressing on each of the packages. I think that's very important. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the question. Yes, we have an outline for all the courses we want to take. And as you said, the Excel instructor showed you guys the outline. So I guess we'll probably have to resend it to you guys so that you can know, okay, this is what you have learned. And when we get to other courses too, we send them in bits. When we get to Python, you are going to be sent, this is what you are going to be taken in Python. When you get to SQL, this is what you are going to be taught in SQL and like that. I hope you understand. So when we get there, we're going to send them. But for the Excel, we can resend. We always have the outline. Then someone asked if we can send the files on Slack channel. Okay, I guess we can also do that as well. We can do that as well. That's the sense of the Slack channel. So we can reach you guys through that means and via your emails as well. So we're going to do the two. So Mr. Nonuga Adekunle is still raising his hand. I don't know if he has something else to say.
Sorry, that's a mistake. I'll drop it now.
All right. So I guess there are no further questions. If there are no further questions, we are going to be calling it a day for now. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, and encourage us to try to strive to ensure we keep on practicing and paying attention while the class is going on. I wish every one of us a fruitful weekend and a blessed week ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.